Hi everyone, it's Tarrant.
And Stella here from the Dice Tower. Thanks for joining us.
The classic 2009 cooperative game Castle Panic, the second edition by Justin DeWitt and published by Fireside Games, now has its fourth expansion, Crowns and Quests. To celebrate this, we're going to be taking you through how to play the base game and how to integrate it with this new expansion.
Let's get to it.
Castle Panic is a cooperative game for 1 to 6 players, in which the players need to protect their central castle and its 6 towers from the hordes of invading monsters. Players will be drawing and playing cards, trying to hit those monsters and remove them from the board, while more and more monsters and other effects will arrive each round. If the players can eliminate all monsters from the supply and the board, without losing all of their tower pieces, then they win the game. To set up, find the 6 tower pieces and then place one into each of these spaces at the center of the board. This is what you'll be defending. Then find the 6 wall pieces and place one in front of each tower. These are your starting inbuilt defenses. Shuffle the deck and deal each player a hand of cards, 6 in a 2-player game, 5 in a 3 to 5 player game, or 4 in a 6-player game. You're playing cooperatively and can keep your cards face up. From all the monster tiles, find 3 goblins, 2 orcs and a troll. Place one of those monsters in each of the 6 archer rings of the board. It doesn't matter which you use. Each tile should be placed so that its highest numbered corner is pointing towards the middle of the board. At any point, this innermost number is the number of hit points that that monster has left. Remaining monster tokens are flipped over and shuffled up. The remaining tokens are kept nearby for now. Choose a first player and you're ready to play. Castle Panic is played in turns, starting from the first player and going clockwise around the table. On your turn, you'll resolve 6 steps. The first 3 steps, draw up, discard and draw and trade cards, is all about getting the optimal cards into your hand. The bulk of your turn will be the play cards phase, where you use those cards to try to attack the monsters who are attacking the castle. Then, the last 2 phases, the monsters will fight back, advancing on the castle and new monsters coming into play. Once you've resolved all 6 steps, play will pass to the next player clockwise. The first 3 steps are the hand management steps. It's all about getting the best possible cards in your hand for the attack. Firstly, you'll draw up. Draw from the top of the deck until you have the same number of cards that you had at the start of the game. So if this were a 5-player game, for example, you would draw up to 5. Next, you may optionally discard and draw. Choose one card from your hand that is of no use to you this round, discard it, and then replace it from the top of the deck. Thirdly, you may optionally trade one card from your hand with one card that is currently remaining in another player's hand. If you do this, it must be a 1-for-1 trade. You can't simply give or take, you must do both. This will help you to time your actions. It'll let you get the cards you need now and give other players the cards that you calculate they'll need in 2 or 3 turns. If you're playing a 6-player game, then you may make 2 trades, either with the same or different teammates. Through these 3 phases, if you ever need to draw a card and the deck is empty, then shuffle the discard pile into a new draw deck. Fourth is the play cards phase, and this is where you'll use the cards from the hand that you've built to defend the castle and attack the monsters. When you play a card, you'll discard it and resolve its effect. The most common and simple type of card is a hit card, and these will do damage to one monster in a specific area of the board. This card, for example, is a blue archer, and by playing it, you can do 1 point of damage to any single monster in one of the 2 blue archer spaces. To damage a monster, rotate its marker clockwise so that the new number pointing to the middle signifies a loss of 1 health. Most hit cards target a specific area, but there are a few that are more general. The hero cards allow you to target any single monster in a colour, so this blue hero could hit this troll, and others could hit a specific ring in any colour. So this wild archer could again hit this troll. reduce a monster's health to 0 and it's removed from the board, and discarded face up, separate to the draw pile. There are 2 other types of cards you can play. Brick and mortar are resources, and if you play a brick and a mortar at the same time, then you can rebuild one piece of the wall which has previously been knocked down by the monsters. The others are the purple special cards, and these have their own individual and generally pretty strong effects that you'll want to keep in hand and then time for where they're most useful. Once you cannot or no longer wish to play any cards, it's time for the monsters to do their thing. First moving, then adding new monsters. In a basic move monster phase, you'll advance every monster on the board 1 ring closer to the castle. If 1 or more monsters began the move phase in a swordsman ring, and there is still a piece of wall in front of those monsters, then collectively the monsters suffer 1 hit, the players can choose which monster to give it to, and the wall is broken down. But the monsters move no further for now. If 1 or more monsters starts this phase in a swordsman space and there's no wall in front, then they will advance into the castle space in front. If that castle space still contains a tower, then the tower is destroyed and once again 1 hit is dealt across those monsters and you can choose to which monster. But unlike the wall, destroying the tower does not stop the movement. Once a monster or group of monsters is in the castle, then its movement will be 1 step clockwise. And again, if there's a tower present, it will destroy the tower and suffer 1 hit. Once monsters have reached the inner castle area, they're quite difficult to deal with because none of your normal hit cards work on them. Instead, it's only the 3 special cards that show the castle icon in the top left corner which can be played on that monster. The Barbarian, who can slay the monster automatically, removing all of its hit points at once. Drive him back, which pushes the monster out of the castle and back to the edge of the forest. And Tar, which can be played on any monster, even in the forest, to stop it from moving for 1 turn. Finally, draw 2 new monsters. 1 at a time you'll draw a monster, and if it is a conventional monster, you'll roll the die and then place it into the forest ring of the matching numbered sector. It can't be attacked while it's in the forest on its next turn, but it will start advancing from the end of the next player's turn. You may end up drawing a special token which does not show one of the monsters, and how to resolve all of these is explained in this bottom corner of the board. Some will cause monsters to move in unexpected ways. Some force players to discard cards. And some speed up play by bringing more monster tokens into play all at once. You may draw a boss monster, indicated by the gold health numbers. Each of these is added to the board in the usual way, and then has a special ability which is resolved, as shown in this corner of the board. And then there are the giant boulders, which are a double-edged sword which could help or hinder depending on the roll of the dice. Roll the die, and then the boulder rolls through, slaying every creature that it comes across until it hits and destroys a part of your structure. This could be the wall or the tower in that sector, or if both are already destroyed, it'll keep going through to the opposite side, perhaps destroying the opposite tower or wall. If there's no structures in the path, it'll just keep rolling through, knocking out monsters on the opposite side. And with that, we've seen almost every effect. There are only 3 more cards which have different effects. This one simply lets you draw 2 cards. Nice Shot can be played at the same time as another hit card when you play that against a monster which has more than 1 health, and the combination of these cards instantly slays the monster you hit. And the Fortify Wall card allows you to place a fortification token over one of your walls. This essentially gives the wall a second life. Next time something happens which would destroy the wall, you instead remove the fortification, and it's only on a subsequent turn that the wall can be destroyed. The game ends in victory once the players have drawn every monster tile from the draw deck and slain every monster on the board. If the players still have at least 1 tower remaining when this happens, they are the winners. If the players ever lose their 6th tower, then they lose immediately. The base game of Castle Panic comes with a number of variations which you can use for different styles of play. The Master Slayer mode is semi-cooperative. The player who lands the final slaying blow on a monster keeps that monster's tile. And then, as long as the castle is successfully defended, whoever scores the most points by slaying monsters wins the game. Bosses score 4 points, and each basic monster scores points equal to its starting health. This player would have 8 points, and this player would have 15. The Overlord mode is a 1 versus many mode in which one player will take on the role of the monsters. After the Move Monsters phase of each round, the Overlord draws up to 3 monster tiles and then has a choice for adding monsters to the board. The player may either choose 2 tiles, playing them in the usual way, or may instead choose 1 monster tile from hand and then place it in the sector of their choice without rolling the die. When the Overlord resolves a draw tiles effect, the Overlord draws that many tiles into hand and then plays that many from the overall choice. There's also a single-handed solitaire mode, which you'll play with a hand of 6 cards. With no teammates, there's no trade phase, but in the discard and draw phase, you may discard 2 cards at once and draw back up. There's also a wide range of different suggestions that you can use for an easier or harder game. Crowns and Quests adds 2 new mechanisms to bring variety to the game of Castle Panic. These are the characters and the quests. Each player is given a character who comes with a special power, giving them added flexibility and making their path to victory easier. But each game also comes with 2 quests, a standard quest and an endgame quest, and the players must collectively achieve both of those quests rather than simply survive the horde of monsters. The characters and quests are designed to be played together, the characters making things easier and the quests harder. Although this expansion is compatible with Castle Panic's previous 3 expansions, not every mix of scenarios is balanced, so do take care when mixing this with the other expansions. There's also an assortment of tokens which correspond to the various quests and characters. To set up for characters, each player is dealt 2 characters in addition to their starting hand, and then chooses 1 to play as. Then randomly choose one of the 6 tower indicators and place it here. This represents which of the 6 towers your character is considered to live in. Each character has a special ability which may be used once per turn on that player's turn, with the exception of Zhang Wei, whose may be used multiple times. Most, but not all, are resolved in the play cards phase. Once a character's tower is destroyed from the board, then if there is another tower still standing which is unoccupied by another character, then the character may occupy it. Once no unoccupied tower remains, the character is flipped over and its abilities can be used no more. To set up for the quests, you'll choose any one standard quest and endgame quest at the start of the game. You'll place the standard quest face up and follow its specific setup rules and keep the endgame quest off to the side for now. Each quest comes with its own special rules and objective that you're trying to meet while still defending the castle. All quests play differently, and 2 new phases are inserted into the order of play. Begin endgame quest as the 2nd phase, and quest upkeep as the 6th. The aim of Castle Panic under this expansion is to resolve both of your quests. Once you complete your standard quest, gain the reward printed on it and then put it out of play. Then, once you reach the next Begin Endgame quest phase, which will be after draw up on the subsequent player's turn, then you'll bring your endgame quest into play and follow its setup. If you complete the endgame quest, then you win. As in the base game, if you lose all of your castle pieces, you lose. And unlike the base game, once you've run out of monster tokens and need to draw another, take all of the discards, flip them back over and shuffle them up, and continue drawing. The original game's win condition means nothing in Crowns and Quests. We'll leave you to discover the specifics of the 18 quests by yourself, but there are a few general mechanisms which will help you in several. There is the generic game tracker, and this will usually count a number of turns between quest effects. Some quests require players to commit cards, in which case you'll put them on the quest. They remain there until the quest is complete, meaning they won't shuffle back through your discard pile until that happens. Then there are 3 pieces known as specialists: the Ambassador, Evacuees, and Scout, and these are pieces that you can control that will move around the board. If there's a specialist in the game and it is not currently on the board, then during your play phase you can place it into the swordsman space in your tower's arc. This costs you nothing, but you can't move that specialist on this turn. If the specialist is on the board, then, during your play phase, you can play cards from hand to move it. Discard any one card to move the specialist 1 space. Or discard a card matching the colour of the specialist's current location to move it 2 spaces. The specialist can move through structures and can move clockwise or anti-clockwise within the castle ring. If a specialist ever enters a space with a monster, or a monster moves into a specialist, then they fight. Evacuees lose immediately, while other types will roll the die, attempting to exceed the health of the monster on that space. If the roll is higher, or higher than the sum of all monsters' health if there's multiple monsters, then the specialist survives. If not, the specialist loses a health in the case of the Ambassador, or is removed in the case of the Scout. The Scout is often trying to pick up and carry around objects on the player's behalf. The Scout can carry 1 item at a time, but can pick up and drop off items for free. If the Scout loses combat while carrying, the object is dropped. For all other quests and combinations, we'll leave you to discover on your own. The rulebook has information on how different characters interact with the different scenarios, on how Crowns and Quests interacts with previous expansions, and on how to play Solitaire and Overlord with the quests. And that's how to play Castle Panic, the 2nd edition, with the Crowns and Quests expansion.
If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave that in the comments section below.
Thanks for watching and see you next time.